Welcome to another AgGateway Global Network webinar. My name is Jim Wilson, and I serve as Executive Vice President of AgGateway Global Network. Joining me are Wendy Smith, AgGateway North America's President, and Josh Wall, AgGateway North America's AGIIS Product Manager. Wendy and Josh are excited to discuss identification in agriculture with you and share with you how AgGateway North America is enabling standardized identifiers through the North American agriculture industry. We'll start with Wendy, who will offer some opening remarks and then hand off to Josh Wall for the main presentation. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to add my welcome to Jim's and thank you all for joining us today and for allowing us to tell you more about our Ag Industry Identification System, which is also known as AGIIS. We're very excited about the opportunity to work together with you to determine whether and how we may help you as you get started on your eConnectivity project. Equally exciting to us is the opportunity to learn from you about things we could apply in the U.S. and Canada to the benefit of our members and the industry as a whole as we implement e-business over here. I know you're all well aware that unique identifiers are a critical element enabling e-business, and we have found the AGIIS system to be an excellent mechanism for the creation and maintenance of unique identifiers and in meeting our needs to date in North America. And we hope that AGIIS can be leveraged to your benefit as well. Allow me to introduce Josh Wall, our AGIIS product manager. Josh has worked in the ag industry for over 16 years, starting out in ag retail. He has 14 years experience in identification and technology specifically, and has been with AGIIS since its inception over 12 years ago.
Thank you, Wendy. As Wendy and Jim said, my name's Josh Wall. I'm the AGIIS product manager, and I will be presenting the material today. As you can see from our first slide, we live in a world of identifiers. Organized identification makes the world go around, and that is true in e-business and agriculture. Companies are able to operate more streamlined and efficiently by using unique identifiers. As you look on the screen, you may recognize a few of these identifiers like the National Identification Number and the Universally Unique Identifier, the UUID. For me personally, a driver's license, a credit card, telephone numbers, and frequent flyer miles are in my life daily. Without those, I don't know what I would do. The point is, identification is everywhere. Today, I would like to discuss with you why AGIIS is important, what is AGIIS, how does it work, and considerations for AgGateway Europe expansion. So, as many things, any good solution usually starts with a business challenge, and that is the way the Ag Industry Identification System, AGIIS, started as well. The companies that came together had business challenges they wanted to solve. Today, we see business challenges in the regulatory and environmental area. I know here in North America, each year we have new regulations federally, locally, and even in our own states. But the biggest concern there is uncertainty as to where that future direction will go. We're also seeing challenges on the consumer interest side. And I know you also in Europe you see this as well, where we have consumers that have a real desire to know where their food comes from. We're starting to see more product recalls due to disease or contamination. And, you know, there needs to be some answers there. Consolidation. You know, consolidation isn't only when a business buys a business that, you know, you've got all this information that needs to be merged together as well. So you're talking system records, systems themselves, all this information coming together. Shifting markets and values. We live in a global economy. When something happens in Europe, agriculturally, with the commodity market, you know, we are impacted here in North America, and we see that very quickly and rapidly. The last two bullet points, really, consistent standard identification and information exchange, is what really brought companies together to form AGIIS. Companies felt we needed consistent standard identification, need to understand, if this is the product, this is the identifier that goes with that. And it's that way every time. The same with a grower or a business. Whenever you receive a code, this is what that represents. And in information exchange, within AgGateway, we have standard messages that we use for order to invoice and many business functions. And that is where companies, to be more efficient and more streamlined, wanted to use standard identification within those messages to identify, the location or the product or the individual that was buying or selling that product. So why is the AGIIS system critical to e-business? Well, common identifiers to enable traceability. Traceability is a big deal in our modern day agriculture and the world we live in. Also, unique identifiers improve product position and visibility. We have some of our companies that participate in AGIIS. By having standard identification, they are able to track the inventory in their warehouses, know where that product's going a lot more easily by using standard identifiers. As precision agriculture becomes more prevalent in our agriculture today, unique identification is critical to the efficiency of field operations. By having information, that's out here, it is critical that unique identifiers are able to enable companies to identify that, capture it, and share information about products and businesses and locations. These are the metrics or the business knowledge that allows companies to make critical decisions. A couple of the others down here, as folks were starting to use unique identifiers, they're able to automate more of their business processes. And along with that comes reduced cost as standard schemes are implemented because they are becoming more efficient and streamlined. And the last bullet point, I just can't skip over this one. I think we all understand that if we're going to report for compliance or reporting or environmental regulatory, we want that to be correct. And if we can mitigate incorrect reporting by having more automated processes, that's going to benefit everyone in the supply chain. So here's what the benefit looks like. From the grower to the consumer, a supply chain that is able to use a unique identifier all the way through it. Unique identifiers, streamlining the entire supply chain, enable companies to be more efficient, understand their business better, and ultimately reduce the cost. So, what is AGIIS? As Wendy stated earlier, AGIIS is the Ag Industry Identification System. It's a database and a software that delivers a common set of identifiers and data elements to the agricultural industry, and this is the key here, to foster e-business and e-commerce between companies. So that is the goal of this database. To give you a picture of what it looks like, a visual here, you have the products, entities, and license that make up AGIIS. AGIIS is industry owned and managed by, the participants. So we have products that are uploaded by product manufacturers or product owners. We have entities that are maintained and added by the community of subscribers. So an example of this would be if there is a location out there that address has been updated, the subscriber community will submit that in, and other companies that are utilizing that same entity will receive the update. That is the thought behind a industry-owned and managed database. We also have a component of AGIIS that has seed stewardship licenses in there for biotechnology traits. So here is a snapshot of the database. From an entity side, we have approximately 5 million entities. That consist of businesses, consumers, and locations. Now, one entity within AGIIS can have multiple classifications. So, for example, if you have an ag retail location that sells to a grower or producer, they would be considered or classified as a business within the AGIIS directory. But they may also buy from a supplier, which would make them a consumer as well. So they may have both of those classifications. Licenses. There are approximately 950,000 licenses in the AGIIS database, and as I mentioned before, these are out there to manage seed stewardship, biotechnology trade agreements. Now, as far as subscribers, we have 300 subscribers to the AGIIS database. 71 of those are full subscribers, which means that they have the ability to add, update, maintain a subset, and extract information from the database. Our other 229 subscribers, which are search and view, are companies or individuals that just need a limited view of the database. Maybe they just want to look up an identifier or look up a product. They have the capability of doing that. So now I'd like to discuss a little bit, behind the scenes, how does this work? So it begins with unique identifiers. And that starts with a G10, which is a global trade item number, and a GLN, which is a global location number. A G10 is used to identify products at the lowest saleable unit. They are assigned by the product owner, and they're displayed in AGIIS. A GLN is used to identify entities, which, as you've seen, are the business, consumers, and locations. And all active entity records in AGIIS have a GLN identifier. We have a slide coming up later, but both of these identifiers we work with GS1 US and GS1 Canada to get this information. So what is being identified? Well, when you talk about the who and the where, that's a GLN. So who manufactured a product or who supplied a service. The field identification, the who and the where around that. Whose field is it? Where is the field? The applied, or who applied a product, who planted a product, where was it applied, where was it planted. Now the G10 is the what. What product or services is being identified by a G10 number. So as I said, we would talk about GS1 in a later slide. And GS1 is an international standards organization. AgGateway has had a strong relationship with GS1 US for over 10 years. Around that time frame, AgGateway and GS1 US made an agreement for AGIIS to be able to assign global location numbers. And these numbers were assigned for smaller entities in the supply chain, such as growers or ag retailers, businesses or individuals that maybe didn't have the capability or couldn't afford to get their own GS1 prefix. GS1 and AgGateway work together where AGIIS uses generic prefixes to assign individual global location numbers to these entities. Now, this effort has allowed us to be able to expand the promotion of unique identifiers and to be able to get all individuals on board with that. We're currently in the process and have been over the past couple years of developing a relationship with GS1 Canada through the Canadian Crop Protection Connectivity Project, which is an order-to-invoice project. The purpose of this project is to streamline the supply chain by implementing business process functions and electronically connecting using an industry set of messages and tools, including AGIIS. So in that industry set of messages that have been defined, there are, that's where the unique identifiers go. The who and the where and the what. So who shipped the product, where was it shipped? We utilize those unique identifiers from AGIIS within those messages. So a little bit more about GS1 and their company prefix. It really is the foundation of the GLN and the G10 number. As you can see on the carton of strawberries here, there's a barcode. And within that EAN or UPC, there's a company prefix up front. And that is the prefix that is assigned by GS1 or the prefix that we can assign within AGIIS that's a generic prefix on the GLN. What takes place after that? You are the company's owner. The owner of the prefix is responsible for assigning the middle digits, and then there's a check digit on the end. So I want to talk a little bit about the uses of unique identifiers in North America and how we use them. Companies use it in really these four different areas: the supply chain, where we see sales reporting, ship notices, delivery confirmations, things of that nature. We're starting to see more use and potential use in precision ag, where we're seeing it for work orders or machine reference data. In regulatory compliance, as I mentioned with the seed licenses, we're seeing it in stewardship and compliance reporting and product movement. But really, as we mentioned up front, traceability is really, all of these functions relate to traceability. And really there is the end game, and really a lot of the messages you see above apply to that. So a little bit about AGIIS, the solution. This is a pretty generic visual here, but I wanted to just kind of break it down and give you an idea kind of how the product works. So in the middle is really that software and business logic. And in the business logic area, that is where the business rules lie. And in each individual component of AGIIS, there's business rules. But let me give you an example. So when you go to add an entity, there's a rule that says you have to have a business name or a company name. You also have to have a mailing address or a physical address associated with that. You have to classify what the entity is, so those are business rules there. When it comes to the address, we also standardize that address. And today we do that in North America with the United States Postal Service and the Canadian Postal Service by using software that has been certified, and we do address standardization on that. So an address is submitted in, and we do a real-time web service call and standardize that information to make sure it meets standards, USPS or Canadian standards. So that second layer is really a communication layer. And, we have several notifications or extracts that our subscribers receive. So if somebody, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, has an entity in their subset, and that means they've told the AGIIS database that they do business or they care about this entity, and any time it gets updated, they would like to receive a notification. There's that capability within the system. Most companies that have subsets receive either a daily or weekly extract that they apply back to their own system so they can stay synchronized with the database. And the thought is that if they're synchronizing with the database, so are their trading partners that are utilizing AGIIS and trading with them. So they are on the same page. And then the last ring around this really represents the access layer or accessibility. We do have a web user interface that subscribers use. We find that is used mainly for, some one-off maintenance that's being done or quick lookups. We also have web services that subscribers have implemented. And really, they've utilized these web services or implemented them with their own systems. So they have that real-time update capabilities. So an example of this is if a subscriber has developed a system that is reviewing orders that come in, and there's an order that kind of falls out because they don't recognize the entity. They have implemented a web service call with AGIIS within their own system or their own application that they just hit a button, it does the web service call, and it brings back that information that they need. It's worked real well for some of our larger subscribers. And then we also have bulk files that people can submit to look up, information such as entities, or to add entity information as well. So as we're talking about entities in AGIIS, I wanted to give you a real visual of what they look like. So as you can see, the top picture on the left-hand side here is a typical consumer that might be in the AGIIS database. He is a grower or a farmer that maybe raises wheat. It could be canola, it could be soybeans, and he does business with some of the trading partners. As I said, consumers and businesses, you can have multiple classifications. On the right-hand side, we have a business, which could be an ag retail location that sells crop nutrient products as well as crop protection and seed products. And they could be classified as a business. And then down below, we have the location. It could be this cornfield of a farmer, or it also, in our database, we have several companies that identify in the crop nutrient area rail sidings or drop points for fertilizer or crop nutrient products. And those are described as locations. So what I've provided for you here is an example of a business entity and some of the key data elements that are associated with the business classification in AGIIS. So the first data element here you see is a unique identifier, which is key, the global location number. You also would have a company name, a doing business as name, physical address, you may have a mailing address. a phone number. You might have latitude and longitude, those GPS coordinates. Entity classification, which is that business, consumer, and location. A business status would be in business, out of business. In many cases, if you have a situation where there's been a merger or a buyout, we will note that as bought out. If we found an entity was a duplicate within our database, we would indicate that as a business status of replaced. And then also within AGIIS, we offer a service of verification. You know, some subscribers may want the directory administrator of AGIIS to do some verification. So that could be a phone verification, or it could be an internet lookup or web search. So products in AGIIS. Here is a visual of this. You see crop protection products, seed, crop nutrients. We also have some feed products in the database as well. And as new industry segments come aboard, we have new products that, you know, get added into the database and get established at G10 record. So again, I wanted to provide a few key elements from a seed product, and I use that as an example here. But you would have the global trade item number. You would have the product category, and in this case it would be seed. You would have a product name. So it could be, you know, the name of that product, or if it's a soybean, it could be the variety, you know, plus the brand. The next is brand, so this would be Asgrow, DeKalb, whatever the brand, Pioneer. The crop, you know, whether it's rice or it's canola, soybeans, corn. In the cases of when we have corn and soybeans, corn you would have hybrids, soybeans you would have varieties. Maturity and zone is another data element that is available here. Seed size, and then there's a status at each level, whether it's at the product level, the package size, package configuration level. And then there would be standard units of measure. You know, one of the reasons, especially in the seed area, there are lots of SKUs. So we give folks quite a few data elements that they can search on to make sure they can narrow that list. So the next thing is a continuous improvement process. When you have a database or a software like AGIIS, one of the things we want to make sure we're doing is we're continually improving the product. And that really begins with subscriber input. There's a process in place where subscribers have the ability to make a request to say, hey, I would like to see this enhanced, or I'd like to see this looked at. We believe this is very important because we know the industry we work in is ever-changing and technology is ever-changing. So we want to make sure we give ample opportunity for, you know, users and subscribers to provide input. Now, we do have a formal request process in place. You know, users can go out and fill out this form. And part of that process is to make sure that they not only state what they want, but we also have a good understanding of what they believe the benefits and how it will benefit the industry and other subscribers. Once you have the formal request, it goes on to the Directory Oversight Committee, which this is a committee within AgGateway that is the oversight for the ag industry identification system. This group reviews these requests. They also are the ones that, you know, work with the system vendor to make sure the business rules are being enforced, and if there's any new business rules that need to be considered, it goes to this group. This group is made up of a representative from each council within AgGateway. So like the Crop Protection Council has a representative that sits on the Directory Oversight Committee, as well as feed in every other industry segment. It was designed that way to make sure that, you know, all input is considered, and we're making sure that the asset is benefiting the whole community. Right now, AgGateway is considering an upgraded platform. Really the thought process behind this is we want to make sure that as we continue to move forward, we're thinking of the future. We're able to leverage new technologies that are available. We also are making sure the product has enhanced flexibility. In one case is to assign and group identifiers. As precision ag is becoming a bigger part of the AgGateway membership and also a bigger part of agriculture, there's some different ways that we could look at grouping products, and that is one of the things this group would be considering. We also see some opportunities for some improved personalization options, and this would be to give subscribers that have entities in the database the ability to create relationships. Today, an entity is in AGIIS, and there's no relationship around that. It's not saying that this entity is related to this branch or anything. Because what we have found is our subscribers really kind of create some of those own relationships, and they vary between companies. So this new enhancement would give companies the opportunity to create those relationships so only they could see them within the database. And then the last bullet point here is the opportunity of the expansion of e-business resources beyond unique identifiers. Some of more testing capabilities when it comes to AgGateway messages and some other capabilities around that. So AGIIS benefits. This is statements that have came directly from our subscribers where they say using unique identifiers along with AgGateway's standardized message formats has resulted in these things below. You know, reduced manual data entry, fewer data errors, less time spent communicating, you know, by phone, fax, and email. Better communication between systems. You know, the response time and notification is reduced because, you know, when we said this earlier, when we have a unique identifier and it's consistent, you know, each partner understands what that means. Standardized messages, formats enable automation of communication processes. So, the last slide I wanted to touch here is considerations for AgGateway Europe expansion. To just give you some thoughts around this. You know, some of those expansion considerations would be internationalization support of the AGIIS system, which would include the database, the web interface, reports, web services, and you know, anything else there. We would have to modify our system to accommodate European addresses. We would need to update our address standardization software to get those European countries' address data sets. So today we have US and Canada. We would want to get additional sets for additional countries. I think also another consideration here would be, you know, the business rules that we operate. You would need to review those to make sure they make sense. But we understand there may also be some other business rules that may need to be considered. And there also may need to be some legal review to make sure, the entities that are out there, we aren't violating any laws or anything of that nature. And then we would need to define AgGateway Europe's role in the continuous improvement process, such as the Directory Oversight Committee and other things of that nature. We would definitely want to receive your input as you start to use the database. So Jim, I will turn it back over to you for more questions that we may have.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Yeah, I just want to let the participants know this is the second of 2 webinars, and this is a repeat of the first with one slight difference, and that is that we got a lot of good questions in the first webinar, and in debriefing the webinar among Wendy, Josh, and myself last week, Josh was able to incorporate content into this presentation to address those questions. So that's great, Josh, and there aren't any questions posted for this webinar. And so with that, I would like to thank Wendy and Josh for presenting, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We plan to post this video and we'll notify you when it's available, and we look forward to you joining us in future webinars. Thanks again and have a great day. Goodbye.